Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the sun entering the sign of Scorpio, immediately making a square to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for. The transit perfects today, but I'll give you the timeline as well, since you'll likely notice this over the course of the next couple of days as the exact square slowly separates. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflection, turn on the notification bell for updates, drop us a comment. All of that really helps the channel to grow. We're seeing if we can get to 100,000 subscribers on the channel by next summer. We're well on our way, but we need your help. If you listen regularly and you're not yet subscribed, please take a second to do that. It really does help us grow as a community. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. There are just 2 promotions today. One is our first gathering for meditation is taking place this Sunday. Go to the Silent Sundays tab under events page and you'll see the schedule for our 30-minute silent meditation gatherings this Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Central. Just click the join link. That'll take you right into the Zoom meeting and you can join us for quiet time. I don't know, there's not a lot. I don't want to put any doctrines or dogmas around it. Quiet time in community is valuable. And if this is something that speaks to you or that could be a benefit to you, maybe even helping you start your own practice, that's the idea behind this. It's free. Please come and join. This is part of my intention to build more meaningful bridges between daily spiritual practice and self-care and astrology, which I think work together amazingly well if you take the time to do it. So anyway, go to the courses page, click on first year course. We have extended the enrollment and the start date of the program because something's come up in my schedule. So our next cohort, rather than on the 8th, will begin on November 15th. Gives a little bit of extra time to register. We've also extended the early bird rate by a week to compensate for that late start. So the early bird rate will be extended until October 31st. That's coming up. So take advantage of this while you can. The first year program is an awesome program in ancient Hellenistic astrology. There's an informational video at the end of today's content where you can learn all about it. If you go over to the page here, you can study about it. This is the 31st group of students that will have come through this. And I've been teaching this program for going on 16 years. So it's something that we've really perfected over a long period of time. There's an entire staff and community of teachers and mentors that will help you through this. I lead and teach all of the programs, but then we have breakout study sessions and tutoring staff available for you throughout the entire year. Again, you'll learn more about it at the end of today's program. Need-based tuition assistance is available. Please do take advantage of that. That allows you to choose your own rate for the price of the program within a sliding scale. And we want to make sure that people, I want to study astrology, but I have a limited income or fixed a tight budget. I'm clawing my way out of debt. We get that. So this is there to make sure that astrology education is accessible for people and doesn't hurt people financially. We believe that that's an important thing for a sacred topic. So please do take advantage of that. Every week I've been saying one reason why I believe studying astrology with us is a good idea. Every day I've been saying something new. I believe deep in my heart, I've seen enough of the world of astrology to really feel that this is true. I think we have one of the best programs in the world. I really believe that. It's not, first of all, maybe that's not saying a lot since the astrological training industry is not like the hugest industry in the world. But of those programs teaching Hellenistic astrology, especially given that we also infuse a lot of modern psychological and archetypal concepts into the way that we teach and do client work, I really do feel like our school, not just the first year program, but all 4 years of our programming, plus the horary program, our master classes, our monthly webinars, obviously the daily content on this channel, create a vibrant learning community that is truly one of the best in the world. And I feel like if you like this content, you're just scratching the surface. Come study with us. You'll be blown away at how much depth and meaningfulness you can add to your study of astrology when you come study with us at Nightlight. I hope to see you there. And again, be sure to take advantage of that need-based tuition assistance. All right, now on to our work for the day. We need to talk about the sun and Pluto today. They're getting together. Let's take a look at the real-time clock. Here is the sun this is Friday, October 24th, and the sun has just entered Scorpio and is making a square immediately to Pluto in Aquarius. Now, I want to emphasize that you could have been feeling this yesterday as the sun entered Scorpio yesterday. So this square we could have easily talked about yesterday. We had other things on the menu for the week, but sun was squaring Pluto yesterday. It perfects that square today. We're going to give it about 3 degrees of separation, which takes us to Monday before the two planets are completely apart within that 3-degree range that we typically consider, that ancient astrologers called an engagement range. So within this space, yesterday through Monday, we have the sun squaring Pluto, and asking ourselves the question amidst this grand water trine that's taking place, by the way, what does the sun square Pluto bring to the table right now? So I want to give you 5 things to watch for, and I want to add a few thoughts about what it might mean that Mercury and Mars are in the sky separating and creating the grand water trine in the background. I'm going to just try to add little accents or highlights with respect to that context as we go. But these are 5 things to watch for that you can sort of set your clock to with respect to any time that the sun and Pluto get together, but then again, some specifics with the context in mind. Number 1, when the sun and Pluto meet, we have the symbolism of the sun, which is often related to things like ambition, will, action, and motivation. For example, when we read birth charts in ancient astrology, one of the things that frequently comes to mind is, what are the natives' ambitions? In what way are they seeking to learn, grow, evolve, develop? If you think of the sun in modern mythological terms, modern psychological terms, you might think of the hero's journey. The hero's journey is one where the hero is set apart for a special mission or a special task, a special sense of purpose that comes with a unique set of circumstances. The sun is like that as a symbol in our birth charts. We can read with respect to the house and sign location aspects being made to the sun. It'll often tell that sort of heroic story of our life. Not that the heroic story of our life is the only story that we pay attention to, but it's certainly a big one that most people who come into astrology readings are concerned with. What's my purpose? What's my special calling? When the sun hits Pluto, this planet of tremendous power and depth and intensity, transformative, it is a planet that pertains to the process of destruction and regeneration. When the sun hits that in any aspect, but especially the squares and the oppositions or conjunctions, the kind of hard aspects, you'll often get a intensified sense of purpose, an intensified need to act in a very specific way. That sense of ambition becomes clear. Or if you are lacking action, motivation, ambition, and feeling rather dead inside, that feeling may intensify, followed by a resurgence of action, ambition, motivation, momentum, and suddenly you're taking action because something has been reborn within you. So the process of our sense of purpose, direction, ambition, action, motivation, willpower, going through a process of death or destruction, and then regeneration is very common for this pairing. It's not uncommon for that to include, unfortunately, the temporary sense, usually earlier in the transit, that maybe as it's applying, so maybe even yesterday into today, you can feel a sense of defeat, being without purpose, or being disillusioned, or you can feel like nothing, that you're not that excited about anything, or a sense of direction or purpose is failing or falling short, or you're feeling disillusioned by it. And then typically what happens is some wave or surge of momentum will pick you up off the mat and keep you going. You'll get up off your feet. You won't tap out. Or you'll say, well, just because that wasn't it doesn't mean there isn't something else. And then maybe a new sense of motivation or purpose emerges. Now we're talking about something happening within the span of just a couple of days. Here's what's interesting. All of the Grand Water Trine processing that we've been doing this week, talking about emotional intelligence, talking about the flooding and overwhelm of the water element. This could be closely tied, this Grand Water Trine window that we're in, to a transformation of purpose, will, ambition, direction, action, so that there might be a very strong way in which emotional currents of change are pressing an issue right now and saying, okay, now it's time to act. It's your ambitions, your motivations are being transformed. And it's happening in part because of the presence of this wave of water energy. So you can consider that as, if it makes sense, if it's intuitive, you can kind of put that together, that context may be relevant. Number two, the death or transformation of solar figures. A solar figure can be someone who is famous, someone who is a leader, a central figure of power or authority, a father figure, or in some ways, any post or position we hold that has those qualities of leadership, authority, being in the spotlight. If we ourselves carry some of those things, then it could be us. But what you will see is that the roles that these figures play die or change or have to be reborn or reconfigured in some way. Or sometimes it's time for grandpa to leave his body, or it's time for dad to have a brush with his own mortality. And that doesn't have to be necessarily anything dramatic. I remember when my dad had his, you guys may, I think I talked about this on the channel last year. My dad had his knee replaced. He had a knee replacement surgery because his knee was falling apart, and that was happening during a Sun-Pluto transit. And I remember being really worried, like, is my dad going to die? Well, he didn't die. He just had his knee replaced. But for him, that was also like, he did a lot of reflecting very openly about, like, oh my God, I'm getting older. I just had my knee replaced. I feel like inside, I still feel like a kid. So again, even just the encounter with the potential for the hero or the solar figure to die, to not live forever. There's something about the sun in all of us that feels like an eternal child, an eternal hero. There's always an adventure. The quest is never complete. There's always some next phase of our calling or purpose. In fact, one of the most defining characteristics of people who are very, very solar is that they can't retire or they try to retire, but then they keep doing things. They keep staying busy rather than transitioning toward the off-ramp of life with, say, more focused, quiet time, immersing themselves in spiritual practice or contemplation, or sort of slowing down, which is, by the way, recommended in the yogic system of life, the Varna ashram system. As you age, you're supposed to sort of gently move toward transcendent things. That doesn't mean that some people won't still work in the world or have ambitions or missions. And by God, I'm not trying to be some kind of ageist who says that you can't have ambitions when you're older. That's ridiculous. Of course you can. But one thing that often naturally occurs for people, and I've seen it enough in my counseling practice to know that this is also very true, is that if you can't let go of heroic mission, purpose-driven life, ambition, achievement, etc., aging gets harder and more difficult for many people, to the extent that they're not able to slow down and let go a little bit. This is often a transit that just teaches us that we can't be Hercules. We're not unstoppable. We're not invincible. And that might be humbling, but it's also kind of relieving to take the burden off our shoulders and say, like, I'm not here to do these Herculean feats. Or if I am, they can be toned down, or they can be scaled back, or they can be a little bit more humble or modest or not as exhausting. So the death or transformation of solar figures is truly metaphorical and often psychological, but sometimes it will actually configure with things happening to a dad, or the transformation of your relationship with your father. If you're a dad, like I'm a dad, I find that often Sun-Pluto transits come up when some facet of my identity as a dad is needing to change or evolve or grow the fuck up. It's like sometimes you just got to level up a little bit with respect to the burdens of authority, responsibility, or leadership that you carry in any area of life. And the Sun-Pluto is wonderful at giving you that nudge if you need it. Also, let's move on to number 3. Number 3 are hidden things revealed or illuminated. And by the way, actually, let me just go back to this really quickly before we go on. That death or transformation of solar figures also taking place in the backdrop of the Grand Water Trine. So the feeling of the shift in leadership or identity around solar figures coming during the midst of this celestial flood that's coming in is really fascinating. What does that look like? There might be a lot of deep ancestral healing or releasing around solar figures right now with all of that water in the sky. Anyway, okay, now number 3, hidden things revealed or illuminated. One of the most beautiful parts of the sun is that it represents gnosis. It represents the illumination and enlightenment of the mind, understanding, higher intelligence. If you're a philosopher, you're seeking enlightenment. If you're a yogi, you're seeking enlightenment. In the ancient world, the sun was the luminous symbol of higher understanding and wisdom, which is always both abstract, intellectual kind of wisdom, but it's also very embodied. The sun is our vitality and our spirit. And the way that you know that wisdom is being embodied is that people are luminous. You'll often see, for example, in pictures of saints in the Christian tradition, but actually all over the world, even in the East, you see halos of light, as though a realized person is someone who's sort of glowing. And that light is warm and it radiates peace and joy and truth and beauty and goodness. These are byproducts of that illumination, that a person, when you're around a person who's an illumined solar figure, a sage, a priestess, a shamaness, whatever the case might be, she glows, she radiates light. And this is a transit that can truly take things that are dark and make them light. Things that are unconscious become conscious. Things that are hidden become revealed. Things that are obscure or dark or shadowy suddenly become integrated. That's fantastic. And this is a transit that also allows us to see into the darker realities of light and understand the hidden gnosis within them. There are a lot of people in this world. There's a lot of suffering in the world. We all know that. But there's a lot of people who suffer the suffering because they can't make room or space for it. Making room or space for it doesn't mean you dress it up in unicorn paint or whatever. It means that you know that it has an evolutionary purpose for existence. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to like it. In fact, it's, I think, probably more natural and humble for us to stand in kind of, there's a little trepidation. There's a little like sacred fear around the darkness and why it's here, why it exists. But it really is foolish to try to fight darkness with the idea that you can get rid of it, that it doesn't have a divine reason for existing. That, at least, is not the recommended way of dealing with or resisting or opposing darkness that sages give us. There's a different kind of resistance that has to take place. It's a resistance that resists while allowing, while surrendering, while forgiving, while, it's gracious somehow. The sun Pluto is like that. It is the wisdom of darkness. It is the light that's in a dark place that understands it has a reason for being there. Anyway, so consider that in little transit windows like this, especially with so much water in the sky, how is the watery signature of the moment connected right now to something deep and hidden or unseen that now you're bringing some gnosis to? There's some enlightenment happening. Ego deaths. Look, the simple thing about the sun and Pluto is that we all have an ego, a part of us that thinks that we're a special case, a special exception, is not the same thing as recognizing that we're special divine beings. Of course we are. It's that part of us that thinks I'm more, I'm better, I'm an exception, I deserve some special treatment, that lacks humility, it gets caught up in hubris and pride. And what we all know the saying, pride comes before a fall. And so the sun and Pluto are associated with fall. The fall of the light of the sun, the fall of the leaves from the trees, the descent of the sun into the underworld, the fall of the sun in the sign of Libra. This is the sun. When the sun enters the underworld, the heart is weighed against the feather. And to have a light heart is a process that we're all developing and cultivating. This is why at Nightlight, we believe so deeply in making this gnosis available to people, in making Silent Sundays available, what's on my altar. The idea here is to help people use astrology to make the heart light. To do that, we have to live with an ego, right? Because we all have one. Ego just means I, just a sense of self and identity. But understanding that that I is a temporary midwife for the spirit soul that's coming through a body in a lifetime. That's the spiritual roots of our practice and tradition. And there are many times in life where in order to be the best midwife we can for the spirit soul that lives in this temple of the body, we have to go through moments where the servant, the ego, which is a servant and midwife of this spirit soul, uh, comes back to its place, because it gets out of place. And it gets out of place when it thinks I'm more important, I'm more special, I'm better, all of these things. So Sun Pluto is a great little moment for an ego check. Not to say you're bad, you shouldn't have an ego, but to say, hey, your ego's real purpose is to serve the light of the spirit soul, and to serve the light of the spirit soul of the world, the anima mundi, the other beings that you encounter. We do that through keeping an open heart and through keeping a servant's heart. And the servant doesn't mean that you diminish your own value or importance. It means that you recognize that the greatest value you have is found in your love for self, love for others. And the ego facilitating that is its proper place. That is how we're taught in these ancient traditions at any rate, and the Sun Pluto will often facilitate a reminder of that if we need it. Or if we are someone who needs some help. Hey, I need some help. Pluto means riches. And when the Sun and Pluto get together, we will often find that resources come pouring in to empower us with the things we serve, with the processes we serve, with any way in which we are trying to facilitate illumination of darkness in the world, in ourselves, in others. And we're doing so to the best of our ability. It is amazing how regularly resources, aid, support flow in. That's the real wealth of life. When that kind of resource flows into your heart, your soul, your life, and it kind of buffers your ability to be a servant of love, well, that is Pluto and the Sun at its finest. And you'll find that transits of Pluto to your natal sun often bring exactly those kinds of resources into your life, which is the real meaning of riches. Number 5, lucid, clear thoughts and emotions. Look, we've got a Grand Water Trine in the air, tons of water, but then we have the Sun meeting Pluto from Scorpio to Aquarius. The power of this moment is the water reflecting the sky. If you look on a lake, Ashley and I were just talking about this because she was reviewing Galen's elemental theory in ancient herbalisms. We were having a conversation, and it was like, okay, you have the pond or lake of your emotional body, and it's constantly moving and fluid. But if it's relatively calm, anytime you look at it, you can see the reflection of the sky, which means ideally we should have a relationship with our emotions where we can say, oh, how am I feeling? And if we sit and reflect upon how we're feeling, then suddenly thoughts rise up, intelligence comes to mind. Here's how you're feeling, and here's what to do. So that the rationality and the emotionality become the mirror in the sky, reflecting each other. The sky basically is water, invisible water in the sky, so the water and air can work together so nicely when we have what is emotional intelligence? The ability to thoughtfully reflect upon and move with emotions, not negating them with rationality, but using rationality to work with them. If you have so much turbulent emotions that the water's so choppy and wavy and crazy, you're not going to be able to see the sky reflected in the water. In which case, sometimes we have to sort of try to bring relative calm to the water through any kind of practice that can still or chill, the emotions. Often meditation, prayer are a great way of doing that, or walking or exercise, so many things. And then it becomes relative. It's not we won't stop emotions, but we want them to be relatively calmer. I mean, sometimes turbulent emotions are just part of life and they're beautiful, but we want them to be like sort of relatively calm so that way we can reflect upon them, find some form of rational intersection and communication. So thoughts and feelings ought to be able to communicate well with one another. Now, if you're so in the sky that you are dissociating, eventually it gathers, congeals, and bursts in a storm mentally that rains down to earth emotionally. So we can't dissociate, because eventually then we'll clog up our emotional body and it creates a storm. But on the other hand, if we're so turbulent emotionally that we can't see the sky reflected, we won't have the ability to work with emotions intelligently. So the water and the sky elementally speak to the emotional body and the mental body. Well, the square between the Sun and Pluto right now, given so much water, is a powerful moment to take what we're feeling emotionally and transform our sense of purpose or direction, because we're getting some greater lucid, clear, intelligent thoughts about the emotions or in relation to the emotions. So I think it's a powerful moment on that level, and I hope you're all able to find that balance between the mind and the emotions that's present right now. All right, that's my part for the day. I hope that this has been useful, that you have a great weekend. Check out the video that's coming next about the Year 1 program. I believe that we have one of the best astrology schools in the world. I deeply believe that. I'm not just saying that to, be puffed up with pride. There are many good astrology schools in the world. Don't get me wrong. I would never claim to be the best, because I just don't even know how you measure something like that. But I believe we are one of the best. I believe that over 16 years of completely giving my life to what I believe is a very important spiritual language that can uplift lives and change lives and hearts, that we've developed something really special. It's not just me, it's a whole group of people at Nightlight and a whole community of people throughout all of our programs. So I hope you'll come check it out and consider studying with us, because I think you'll find that it's a very special place that's been blessed with a lot of really cool people that you're going to meet along the way. I also just feel like if you love astrology, spending time studying it in depth is going to completely change your life in ways that you can't always anticipate going into. You think, I'm just going to study astrology, but it really transforms you from the inside out. Anyway, okay, I'm done. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology, and it begins again this November. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the course, the format of the course, and how to register. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is this course about? Well, if you are not familiar, ancient Hellenistic astrology is the earliest and original form of horoscopic astrology. All of the subsequent forms and schools of astrology that have existed over thousands of years come from these philosophical and theoretical roots. And so what you're doing when you study Hellenistic astrology is you're going back to understand the why behind absolutely everything. Why were there ever such a thing as houses and signs in the first place? How were the planets ever assigned to rule various portions of the zodiac in the first place? How do you use the categories of essential dignity, and why were they ever created in the first place? If you're someone like me, you like to know the why behind things, because once you understand the why, then you know how to use things more intuitively. So really the point of Hellenistic astrology, in my opinion, is not so much about going back and becoming a traditional astrologer, or just being traditional for the sake of being traditional, as much as it is about grasping the roots of the entire system and paradigm. When you understand those roots, you have more intuition and understanding, which allow for you to be much more artful and fluid in the way that you speak the language of astrology. We call this class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic because while it is about going back to understand the philosophical, theoretical, technical roots of the tradition, it's also about fluidly bridging those things with modern astrology and all of its most unique contributions. For example, modern astrology has given us so much psychological depth and personal depth. And so in a modern astrological setting, you're going to get the ability to explore your own character, your own psychology, and you're going to be able to utilize astrology for a process of healing and personal transformation. But when you pair that with ancient astrology, and it's almost like predictive karmic analytics, you really have a full toolkit to work with. And so that's also a great mission of ours at Nightlight, is to bridge ancient and modern forms, which is why we call the program Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So that's just a little kind of overview of the program. If you want to know more about the specifics of the curriculum and of the syllabus, what I encourage you to do is go over to nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, scroll down, and you'll see this over 12 months you'll learn about. And here you're going to see more of a detailed breakdown of the curriculum itself. I can promise you that if you've studied astrology in modern context, but you've never gone back to the ancient roots, while some of these topics may look familiar to you and you go, oh, I've already learned about that, unless you've studied them from the Hellenistic perspective, I guarantee that you are not going to be familiar with this content. Hellenistic astrology is mind-blowingly new and interesting for most people. And if you've never studied it, again, don't assume that anything on this list is something you're going to be familiar with. In that way, the program is really ideal for a variety of different people, and I'll say more about that in a second. So what is the format of the course? Let's go to that next. Scroll down and you're going to see that the course includes 30 online webinars that I lead throughout the year. Over the course of a year together, I have 30 classes that are broken into different units of material. In between those classes, we have breakout study sessions with your course director and 2 TAs. They're going to lead you through Q&A sessions and tutoring sessions to make sure that you have a lot of support in between major units of study. In addition, we also have an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions year-round and get an answer within a business day in the student forum, where a lot of people also connect and build community. Lots of people in that forum also develop like little meetup groups outside of class. That's very common in all of our programs. It's a very community-loving, warm space where anyone's also welcome. Throughout the course, you're also going to find that for every lesson, if you're just there as a hobby student, you can just listen to the webinars. They're all recorded for you. So if you can't make the live webinars, everything is housed on the website as recordings. I'd say about 40 or 50% of our students are going to be following along at their own pace, whereas the other half might be attending the live webinars. But it's really kind of, if you can attend a few and then 1 week you got to be gone, the recordings are always there. You have lifetime access to everything in the course, so it's not a big deal. For every lesson as well, if you're someone who wants to go really, really deep, maybe you have the intention to practice professionally, this course is set up with an optional certification exam at the end from our school, from our program. So you can, if you want to build that resume and develop the credentials from our programs, you can do that, but it's optional, so you don't have to. And outside of every lesson, we have recommended reading. We have supplemental bonus content, all of which is optional, but it's there for people who might want a lot more, whereas some people will take the webinars themselves, and that'll be plenty. So it's really flexible in that way. Also, this is one program within 4 years of curriculum that are meant to go together. And so most people who come through our first year program will end up taking our second year program, where we develop forecasting and prediction and transit tracking techniques. Our third year program, which is aimed at counseling and psychology. So psychological counseling skills is our third year program. And then the Oracle Within, which is our exploration of the philosophical, spiritual roots of the divinatory oracular tradition of astrology. So there's a lot of material there. We also have another 1 year program in horary astrology for some people who want to add that predictive tool to their toolkit. So there's just a lot of material at Nightlight that this class is actually just one part of, which can be taken standalone, or for some people, they get into it, they're going to love it. You're going to hang out with us for 3 or 4 years worth of content. This program is ideal for a number of different types of students of astrology. I'll say that for starters. So let's see here. I'll stop sharing this. So we have there's a profile of the typical students who come through our courses. One is going to be people who just want a very guided introduction to ancient astrology because you've never had it before. Maybe you're only familiar with modern, and you want that guided, structured approach to learning traditional for the first time. Also, people who are brand new to astrology in general, there's no better place to start than at the roots of the ancient foundations. So whether you're a total beginner or just a beginner to Hellenistic, this is a great place to start. If you are someone who's been around astrology for a long time, but you've never had a guided, structured approach to Hellenistic astrology, again, this is a great place to start. I promise you, Hellenistic is very different than what you're familiar with, and you're going to need a guided and structured approach at some point in time. I also think for people who are looking for a lineage, which means not just a bunch of information, but a practitioner-specific based approach where you get to see a practitioner work with clients. You get to hear how a practitioner has prioritized different techniques and why. You're going to get a structured, spiritually grounded focus at Nightlight as well, where if you're looking for someone who practices astrology but also values grounded, everyday spiritual practice, that's Nightlight. If you want a community that's been in the industry for a long time now, this is our 16th year of teaching programs and guiding students through trainings. So all of those things, if they matter to you, this is a great place to study. It's a warm community atmosphere. It's spiritually grounded. It's focused. It's academically rigorous. It's going to provide you the appropriate preparation for practicing professionally, especially if you go through all of our programs. But also for those who are just curious and love astrology for your own personal interests, this is going to be a great place for you to learn and grow and thrive and feel like you have a lot of support around you in the curriculum, the teachers, the community, as you're developing, what might just be a personal interest or spiritual hobby. So that is who it's ideal for. Finally, how you register. You go over to the website. I'm going to take you back there. And it's at the bottom of the first year page. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect until October 24th. You can save significantly off the cost of the course when you use the early bird rate, where you can pay in full, or use an early bird installment rate plan. Both are going to save you off significantly off the cost of the course. But also at Nightlight, it has always been our mission to make sure that astrological education is accessible for everyone. So please, if you are someone who would love to take this course, but maybe you could only afford a small amount of tuition per month, use the tuition assistance. It is there. All you got to do is plot, you fill out the little form, you tell us your situation. If you're on a fixed income, if you're on a limited income, if you're part-time, if you're in between jobs, if you don't make a lot and you're on that fixed budget, we understand. We don't want people to hurt themselves trying to study something that is spiritual that we feel should be very accessible for everybody. So if you're someone who could use a little help to make this program happen, for whatever reason, maybe you're a single parent, or you're on disability, or you're retired, or you're on a fixed income, whatever the case is, use that tuition assistance. Also, people in other countries who have extreme, exchange rates. We get it. So just use the tuition assistance, and we'll be glad to make sure that the price point is accessible. For us, as a spiritual topic, we're a business at the end of the day, but we believe that this is a spiritual topic. And so accessibility has been a part of our model for 16 years now. We've never not had one of our training programs with affordable sliding scale-based prices for people who need it. So please take advantage of that. It's all there for you. I hope to see you in classes soon. And if you have any questions about the program whatsoever, direct them to us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see you all coming up here in November. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.